What the heck was Ian Garry's game plan? Ian Garry just lost to the GOAT Islam Makhachev, and I have a few things to say. First and foremost, Islam Makhachev showed levels in this fight, and he showed why he is in the conversation of being one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. He broke Anderson Silva's 16 fight win streak, and the GOAT Islam Makhachev also broke the UFC curse of unbeatable fighters losing to the underdogs. I also do want to talk about the hypocrisy about Islam Makhachev's performance. A lot of people are already criticizing Islam's performance for it being boring, and he was scared, and he gave the UFC fans a horrible, boring show. But I want to talk about Ian Garry's horrible game plan that he had against Islam Makhachev. Overall, this version of Ian Garry was not the Ian Garry we shouldn't have saw against Islam. One thing I noticed about Ian Garry in this fight with Islam Makhachev is the fact that he was waiting too much. I think the biggest downfall for Ian Garry in this fight is that he gave Islam Makhachev too much respect. And just feeling the vibe of the fight, right? Looking at Islam, looking at Ian Garry, I felt as though Islam had more fear, had more respect, was more cautious against Ian Garry, but at the end of the day, Islam took more risks compared to Ian Garry. And that was the ultimate downfall of Ian Garry's whole performance, is that he was just giving Islam Makhachev too much time to think, too much time to breathe. There were times in the fight where Islam Makhachev was just low-key dog-walking Ian Garry on the feet, and it seemed like Ian Garry's reaction time, his quickness, his capability of throwing a bunch of punches, mixing up his tools, it wasn't there. He just wasn't sharp. And I'm not saying that Ian Garry, maybe he had like some sort of infection or there was some sort of injury involved. I'm just saying that Ian Garry just gave too much respect for Islam Makhachev to a point where he just wasn't throwing his kicks. He wasn't throwing enough kicks to the body. He wasn't throwing his combinations. He wasn't rolling under, going to the body, feinting, going up top with head kicks. He just wasn't throwing combinations. Every once in a while, you will see a little bit of that old Ian Garry that we saw in previous fights come into this fight. Like, for example, in round 3, Ian Garry kind of goes for this like weird uppercut. And the reason why I say it's weird is because sometimes in certain fights, and I think you can see this in the Carlos Prates fight, he throws almost like an uppercut and then he just kind of pops his hand like this. And we saw that in the Islam Makhachev fight. He kind of uses the uppercut and then follows up with a head kick. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the only sort of combination that we saw against Islam Makhachev. Like after that, I feel like Ian Garry, he was just waiting. And he was only throwing a couple body kicks. Maybe he was going up top. Maybe he was trying to throw his jab. And you could see in some of the moments where Islam was pressuring and dog walking Ian Garry in the striking, you could see Ian was trying to counter, but it wasn't really there. It wasn't really landing. Even though I had Islam winning this fight, and I honestly thought he was going to finish him because all fight week Islam was saying that I was going to finish him in the 4th round. I see openings, this and that and this. I like to look at the other side of the coin here because, I'm a little different. Not going to lie. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I like to look at both sides. I want to see the strengths and weaknesses. And by the way, I am not a fighter, so don't take me seriously. This is just what I'm saying. But I feel like Ian Garry's key to victory here was throwing combinations, throwing the feint, being weird. I feel like he should have been the one walking down Islam Makhachev instead of Islam doing the other way around. Because at the end of the day, Ian Garry was going to get taken down. He was going to get controlled. He was going to get out-grappled. So at that point, might as well just go for it. Throw combinations. Throw your 1-2. Go to the body. Use your jab. Use your feint. Follow up with the head kicks and body kicks like you usually do. Go kick at the knee, for Christ out loud. But he didn't do that. I would imagine Ian Garry's game plan here was to be kind of the sharpshooter, land more of the significant shots. Yeah, it was working, but Ian Garry was just waiting too long for Islam to do anything. He was trying to look for counters. He was trying to feel him out. But by the time Ian Garry had any thought process to throw anything, Islam went for the takedown. If I was Ian Garry's coach, by the way, I'm not a fighter, but if I was Ian Garry's coach, I would tell him to throw more combinations. This guy was just trying to go for body kicks. He would throw like 1 or 2 combinations up top and maybe to the body, to the head. But it seems to be Ian Garry was just fighting very scary in this fight. And you could clearly see just like the immaturity level, the inexperience in this fight with Ian Garry, because Ian Garry, he just wasn't taking enough chances in my opinion, whereas Islam, he was dog walking, he was pressuring, he was trying to take him down, he lifted him up. Someone who's 6'3" and Islam's like 5'11", this is his second fight in the welterweight division filled with young, hungry, lion killers, tall and lanky. He lifts him up and takes him down. Like I feel like nobody was giving Islam Makhachev his credit because all you guys are anti-Muslim, film, anti-Russian, anti-Islam Makhachev, and full-on pro, Ilya Topuria pro, all knockouts, all satisfy the fans, all entertainment, all blood and guts and glory. But for me, this fight was very competitive, but it definitely wasn't no robbery, and it was not a boring fight at all. And this kind of goes to my next topic that I'm going to talk about in this video, which is the unnecessary hate of Islam Makhachev. If we just stopped listening to the internet for once and actually looked at this fight for what it was, Islam Makhachev, he was trying to engage. He was trying to give you guys the rough and tough fight, but Ian Garry just didn't do his job properly and looking for counters, actually throwing combinations, go 1-2, go rolling over to the body, use your feints, use your jab, follow up with head kicks, use the oblique kick to the knee. He just wasn't doing that. And it's kind of this weird thing because everyone's just kind of putting the blame on Islam Makhachev. Oh, he made this fight boring. He's a fucking goat fucker. Like, why are we talking about Ian Garry's horrible game plan, which could have led to a more entertaining fight where Ian Garry was throwing more and Islam would have been tested and put on his back foot? But no, we have to always throw all the shit to Islam Makhachev, the GOAT, the real king of the UFC. Because this is the reality here, folks. Islam Makhachev, he's going to stay undefeated. He's going to stay unbeaten. He's going to beat Protest. He's going to beat my GOAT Morales, unfortunately. Maybe Shavkat if he comes back. And he's going to leave this sport on top. And you guys are just going to have these excuses over and over again of like, oh, Morales' fight was boring. Oh, he got rocked against Protest, if that ever does happen. I'm just making up scenarios that could happen in these fights. You guys are just gonna make all these excuses of, oh, but he got hurt. Oh, but look at his face. Oh, but he's a goat fucker. Oh, look, the fight's boring. But at the end of the day, it's cut, clean, and simple. Islam, the way he's moving, the way he's projected, he's going to leave this sport on top and he's going to be in the conversation whether you like it or not. But no, the excuses are not going to be about, oh, he lost to Ian Garry. Oh, he lost to Morales. He's not in the conversation. It's just going to be about, he's boring. He's a goat fucker. He always hugs. He got hurt by this guy. He got hurt by Morales or Ilya Topuria or blah, blah, blah. Give this man his credit, you people pieces of shit. In reality, instead of putting the blame on Islam Makhachev for wrestling and taking down Ian Garry and taking advantage of Ian Garry's holes, why don't you go at Ian Garry? Weren't you guys just talking about how this guy's like a cuck and he's like a loser and he's all this? But why can't we critique Ian Garry's clear fuck up here, which is the fact that he should have been throwing more combinations, he should have been throwing feints, he should have been going down for the body, he should have been just throwing more oblique kicks, he should have just been throwing more in general, but he didn't do that because Ian Garry was too scared, respectfully so, and Islam had a lot of time to capitalize off of Ian Garry's work rate. If you look at all the fights of recent, Protest, Bilal, Shavkat, Ian Garry was just throwing more. He was just throwing more combinations. He was being more elusive. And people want to talk about Islam being boring. Why can't we go back to the Shavkat versus Ian Garry fight? Because this Islam performance with Ian Garry is basically the same with the Shavkat and Ian Garry fight. Because in reality, Shavkat was the one taking the risk. Shavkat was the one that was outstriking Ian Garry. And you know what Ian Garry was doing? He was doing nothing. He was just standing there. He was just throwing a little bit of shots, trying to look for a counter, but he was actually getting outstruck. He was getting outsmarted by Shavkat Rakhmonov. So we want to talk about Islam being boring and him being the problem? Guys, look back at the Ian Garry versus Shavkat fight. Shavkat was the risk taker. Shavkat was throwing more. Shavkat was the guy that was pleasing the fans. And it seems to me history repeats itself with this fight with Islam. Ian wasn't throwing enough combinations. He wasn't throwing feints. He wasn't throwing his uppercut right hand. He wasn't ending it off with a head kick. He just wasn't throwing any combinations. He was waiting far too long for Islam to do anything. He tried to counter. You could see it in the fight. He tried to counter with Islam whenever Islam was walking him down, but he just couldn't land any. He got taken down and he lost. But I just hate this unnecessary Islam Makhachev hate. Because in reality, it's not Islam's fault for seeing Ian Garry's weaknesses. It's the fact that Ian Garry had a horrible game plan and he just wasn't throwing enough. He should have been throwing combinations. He was just way too scared of Islam and kind of overestimating Islam Makhachev. Because I just feel like he would have had a better chance if he just threw more combinations. He threw the jab. He went for that head kick that he did in like 1 or 2 times in that fight. But all he did was just throw precise shots to the body kicks, and he was throwing his jab here and there. But no, that wasn't the key here. The key here was throwing combinations like he usually does in his other fights, pressuring Islam, dog walking him. But Islam was dog walking Ian. And also Ian Garry's fight against Carlos Prates, you could even argue that Ian Garry was just not making the fight more entertaining. Yes, Prates was a little scared. Yes, Prates wasn't pressuring. But you could see in that Carlos Prates performance, he was wrestling him. He was grappling him. And at the end of the fight, notoriously, he got reckless. He tried taking down Carlos Prates after he was tired through four and fifth round. And he got clipped a couple of times. But why can't we talk about that? Why can't we talk about the fact that each time Ian Garry fights a knockout artist, like a killer like Shafkat or Carlos Prates, he just kind of like, he just doesn't match the excitement that the other opponent tries to do. Yeah, I'll give Ian Garry the benefit of the doubt with Carlos Prates, because at the end of the day, I think Carlos Prates, he was just too scared of Ian Garry striking. But with the Shafkat performance, come on, people. Like, Shafkat was outshining Ian Garry. He was throwing crazy head kicks. He was throwing the combinations. He was throwing he was outstriking him. He was hitting him more. Shafkat was outplaying Ian Garry every way, shape, or form. He just couldn't get Shafkat. That's all I have for today. See ya later.